We're going to go back to adding and subtracting decimals again, but this time we're going to do it in the form of some word problems. So we are also going to bring back our annotating rules. So if you have any highlighters handy or color pencils, you're going to need two colors because the same way that we annotated when we did fraction word problems is the same way that we're going to annotate as we do decimal word problems. So your goal for today is I can add and subtract decimals in a word problem. And so the first thing that we need to talk about is how do I know when it's an addition problem? And so same as when we looked at fractions, we are going to look for the word altogether or the word total in the word problem. So for example, how much did they eat altogether? What is the total cost? These are things that are going to immediately signal, hey, I need to add these two decimals together. Likewise, how do I know if it's a subtraction problem? Well, I'm going to look for the words left or less. For example, how much is left, or what is the missing amount? How much less did Jody eat than John? Okay, these are things that are going to signal subtraction to us. Another thing that will signal subtraction is the phrase, how much more? So for example, how much more sugar was used than oil? That's going to signal subtraction as well. Now, because no word problem is created equal, there are some times where none of these words will be present and it will still be a subtraction problem. So we want to make sure that we use our common sense, we want to make sure that we read the problem carefully, and we use our critical thinking skills, okay? But these are very, very good guiding words to look for. All right, let's remind ourselves of our annotating rules as we read through word problems. So remember that these annotating rules are not meant to be cumbersome. They're not meant to take a long time. 30 seconds maximum. So we're going to read the problem once. That should not even be counted in the word problem rules, if you want my honest opinion, because you have to read the word problem anyway. Step 2, highlight the question in one color, okay? You have to read the question anyway. Highlight it in one color. Why do we highlight the question? Because sometimes the question is not simply asking you to add the two decimals together and call it a day. Sometimes it's asking you to take it a step further or to convert it into another unit of measure. Okay, so that's why we like to zone in on the question. Step 3, highlight the words that tell you the operation. This is to help you understand, well, what is the problem actually asking me to do? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Especially when we get to division, well, which number comes first? Remember that struggle with fractions. And step 4 is an optional one. If it helps you to draw a picture, draw a picture. If it doesn't help you, then you can omit that step. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Isabel downloaded 2 apps, which were 12.48 kilobytes total. If one app was 1.98 kilobytes, how big was the other app? So we are going to highlight our question. How big was the other app? And we're going to look for our key word. So reread it one more time. Isabel downloaded 2 apps, which were 12.48 KB total. If one app was 1.98 KB, how big was the other app? So there's not one explicit word that tells us, but I'm zoning in right here. If one app was this, how big was the other? Which is kind of the same as how much more. If one was this, how much more was that? Okay, so that's going to signal to me subtraction. So we're going to do 12.48 minus, okay, now we're back to addition and subtraction here, so we need to make sure we're lining up our decimal point. So I'm going to actually put my decimal point first, then the number right next to the decimal is a 1, and then on the other side is a 98, and I'm going to fill in a 0 as a placeholder, and I'm going to subtract. 8 minus 8 is 0, 4 minus 9 can't do it, so I'm going to borrow. The 2 becomes a 1, and the 4 becomes a 14 because I added 10 to it. 14 minus 9 is 5. Bring down my decimal. 1 minus 1 is 0, and 1 minus 0 is 1. So the answer is 10.50, or, so that could be 1, or you can also drop the 5 at the end because it's really not needed. So either answer is acceptable. All right, let's take a look at another one. Hallie was buying food for her birthday party. She bought a 63.55 ounce bag of barbecue chips and a 63.9 ounce bag of regular chips. How many ounces did she buy altogether? So let's go ahead and highlight our question here. How many ounces did she buy altogether? And then our key word, it sticks out to me right away, all together, okay? Which means I'm going to add up these two decimals. So I have 63.55 and 63.9. So 63.55 plus 63.9. Now I'm going to add a 0 at the end as a placeholder. Make sure my decimal points are lined up. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 9 is 14, and I'm going to carry the 1. Bring down my decimal point nice and thick so it doesn't get lost. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and 6 plus 6 is 12. So my final answer is 127.45. By the way, as you're adding and subtracting decimals, it's really good practice not to leave this right here as your final answer, but to write it off over to the side and to box it off. It makes it a lot clearer. All right, Paul walked 5.02 kilometers during the 2 days he was at the fair. Oops, that should say on the first day he walked 1.52 kilometers. How far did he walk the second day? So I'm going to go ahead and highlight my question. How far did he walk the second day? And then what is my operation? So let me read it again. Paul walked 5.02 kilometers during the 2 days he was at the fair. On the first day, he walked 1.52 kilometers. How far did he walk on the second day? So this is going back to that second type of subtraction. And I'm going to go all the way back here. The how much more. And again, it's not explicitly said, but it's on the first day he walked this, so how far did he walk on the second? Okay, so it's going to be 5.02 minus 1.52. Okay, 2 minus 2 is 0. 0 minus 5 can't do it, so we're going to borrow. The 5 becomes a 4, the 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. Bring down my decimal. 4 minus 1 is 3. Now my answer could either be 3.50 kilometers or it could be 3.5 kilometers. Either answer is acceptable. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Henry bought, I'm messing up these numbers today. Henry bought 7.91 pounds. By the way, this LBS is pounds. Henry bought 7.91 pounds of cherry and lime jelly beans for his birthday party. If 4.81 pounds were cherry flavor, how many pounds were lime flavor? Okay, so I'm going to highlight my question. How many pounds were lime flavor? And then I need to determine the operation. So to me, this is shouting out subtraction, okay? So it's the how much more, okay? So if this were cherry, how many were lime? So how many more, okay? Again, it's not explicitly said in those words, so we need to use our critical thinking skills. So we have 7.91 minus 4.81. 1 minus 1 is 0. 9 minus 8 is 1. 7 minus 4 is 3. So my answer could be 3.10 pounds, or you can also write it as 3.1 pounds. And if you're uncomfortable writing LBS, you can also write out the word pounds. John and Gwen were comparing the distance they ran over a week. If John ran 12.27 miles and Gwen ran 5.7 miles, how far did they run in total? So let's go ahead and highlight our question. How far did they run in total? And that word is shouting out to me, total. That is our key word, and that signals addition. So we have 12.27 plus, now here's my decimal, and I'm going to make sure I line it up properly. The 5 goes next to the decimal, the 7 goes next to the decimal. So I have a placeholder on both sides there. I'm going to add it up. 7 plus 0 is 7, 2 plus 7 is 9. Bring down my decimal. 5 plus 2 is 7, 1 plus 0 is 1. So my final answer is 17.97 miles. And it's always the proper way to answer these word problems is to write the unit of measure at the end. A scientist was measuring the daily sodium values of different foods. If a soda has 32.78% of the daily, these numbers. If a soda has 32.78% the daily value and fries have 35.3% the daily value, how much would they have together? Now, this is a very typical type EOG question, and the reason why is because it has words like daily sodium values. It has things like percent, again, daily value. And these are all things that if you look at it, also the word scientist, if you look at it and you see it, you start to think, oh my gosh, this is really technical. This is scary. This is throwing me off. We never learned this. This is too much. What am I supposed to do with all of these numbers? Don't freak out, okay? This is just a basic adding decimals question, okay? Let's read it one more time. A scientist was measuring the daily sodium values of different foods. So how much sodium is in food? If a soda, okay, a soda has 32.78% the daily value, and French fries have 35.3% the daily value, how much would they have together? Let's highlight the question. How much would they have together? Now, what's the key word? Together. We're going to add them up. That's all you have to do. Don't let the large words and the percent signs scare you off. 32.78 plus 35.3. Don't forget to add your 0 placeholder at the end. 8 plus 0 is 8. 3 plus 7 is 10. Make sure you carry the 1. Bring down your decimal. 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 1 is 8. 3 plus 3 is 6. Now, in your answer, you're going to answer it with the units of measure, which in this case is percent. 68.08%. And that's it. Okay, just like in the last problem, we answered in miles. In the problem before that, we answered in pounds. In the problem before that, in kilometers. In the problem before that, we should have answered in ounces. And so on and so forth. And so here, the unit of measure is percents. Okay? Roger weighed the candy he and his brother got from Halloween. Together they received 9.29 kilograms of candy. If Roger's amount was 2.89 kilograms, how much was his brother's? So let's go ahead and highlight the question. How much was his brother's? And what is our keyword? So let's read it one more time. Roger weighed the candy he and his brother got from Halloween. Together they received 9.29 kilograms of candy. If Roger's amount was 2.89 kilograms, how much was his brother's? This is going to be a how much more question, okay? So if Roger's was this, how much was his brother's? So it's going to be a subtraction problem. 9.29 minus 2.89. Let's subtract. 9 minus 9 is 0. 2 minus 8 can't do it. We're going to borrow. The 9 becomes an 8 and the 2 becomes a 12 because we added 10 to it. 12 minus 8 is 4. Bring down our decimal. 8 minus 2 is 6. So our answer is either 6.40 kilograms or 6.4 kilograms. Either way is acceptable. On Monday and Tuesday, the lake received 8.73 inches of water. If it received 6.63 inches on Monday, how much did it receive on Tuesday? Let's go ahead and highlight the question. How much did it receive on Tuesday? Okay, what's our key word here? This is also going to be a subtraction problem, a how much more question. Okay, if it received this on Monday, what did it get on Tuesday? How much more? So 8.73 minus 6.63. Let's go ahead and subtract. 3 minus 3 is 0. 7 minus 6 is 1. Bring down the decimal. 8 minus 6 is 2. Your answer is either 2.10 inches or 2.1 inches. Either way, same thing. All right, Janet was measuring how much taller she got over 2 years. In the first year, she grew 2.27 centimeters. In the second year, she grew 7.8 centimeters. How much taller did she get altogether? All right, so let's highlight our question. How much taller did she get altogether? So what's our key word here? Altogether. So we are going to add up our two numbers. 2.27 plus, there's my decimal point, 7.8. Add a 0 as a placeholder at the end. 7 plus 0 is 7. 2 plus 8 is 10. Make sure you carry that 1. Bring down your decimal. 7 plus 2 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So the answer is 10.07 centimeters. All right, so this is the last one here. A computer programmer had 2 files. The first was 34.89 gigabytes and the second file was 38.9 gigabytes. What is the total file size of both? So let's go ahead and highlight our question. What is the total file size of both? And our key word here, total. So that's going to scream to us addition. So I'm going to add up the two decimals. 34.89 plus 38.9, and I'm going to add a 0 as a placeholder at the end. 9 plus 0 is 9. 8 plus 9 is going to be 17. Carry the 1, but bring down your decimal. 4 plus 8 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So your final answer is 73.79 gigabytes. All right, those were lots of really good examples of addition and subtraction word problems with decimals. We will do tons more in class, but for now, feel free to ask me any questions you have.